Hello, my name is Vincent, and today I'd like to talk to you guys about sharpening a traditional Western style knife. There were a lot of requests about sharpening a regular Western style knife as opposed to the 70-30 edge on a Japanese style Western knife. So right here we have a very standard chef knife, and I'm going to go through and sharpen this with you guys. When sharpening a chef knife, I'm going to start with using a rough stone, just like any other knife. Right here we have the 300 grit diamond stone, which is again one of my favorites. So with a Western style knife, one thing to keep in mind is that each side has to be sharpened evenly. So when you're sharpening a Western knife, you want to sharpen both sides the same amount of strokes and the same angle. For today, we're going to use 2 pennies, and we're going to place it on the rough stone, and we're going to lay the spine of the knife onto those pennies. Now, when doing this, you want to make sure that the very bevel of the knife is completely flush and flat on the stone. 2 pennies will help you get that as a rough guideline. However, you really have to feel the bevel being flat on the stone. Now, for a Western style knife, one thing is that it tends to be a little bit thicker than Japanese style knives. So you may need to use a slightly higher angle, but that really depends on the knife itself. So start by using the 2 penny first, and then feel for the bevel being flush on the stone. We're going to start by sharpening from the tip all the way to the bottom, placing 2 fingers right above the bevel and pulling towards you. And just like every other knife we've been going over, you want to make sure you work in little sections and work your way down the length of the knife. Now, the indicator that we're looking for is the burr or ridge to form on the opposite side of which you are sharpening. Once you get that, we're going to flip on the other side. Now, when we flip over, you want to make sure you use the same angle as you did on the previous side. So we're going to place 2 pennies on the stone again, and we're going to lay the spine of the knife onto those pennies. Once you do that and find the correct angle, we're going to work from the tip all the way down the length of the knife. Now you want to make sure that you also do the same amount of strokes on both sides. For every stroke you do on the back, you want to do the same amount on the front. And again, what you're looking for is a little ridge or burr to form on the opposite side of which you were sharpening. Once you've gotten that, we're ready to move on to the next stone. The next stone we're using is a medium stone. This is a 1000 grit. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to repeat the process all over again, starting on the tip and pulling towards you. Then we're going to flip over after we confirm that we have the ridge or burr formed. Now I'm going to flip over again and make sure that I have the same angle as the back side. And we're going to work in sections down the length of the blade. I'm also making sure that I do the same amount of strokes on both sides. And check for the ridge. Once you get the ridge to form, you are done with the medium stone, and we're going to go on to the final stone, which is the finishing stone. Right here we have the 8000 grit finishing stone. We're just going to coat it with water, and we're going to sharpen the knife on the finishing stone just like the previous stones, but make sure that you're pressing lightly, just like any other knife that you're going to be sharpening. Remember that finishing stones tend to be a little bit harder, so if you press too firmly, you're going to end up crushing the edge that you worked so hard to put on. Again, I emphasize, make sure that you use the same angle on both sides and roughly the same amount of strokes on both sides. This is very important to maintain a 50-50 edge on a Western style knife. Now, as I mentioned before, with a finishing stone, you're not going to get a ridge or burr. Just make sure that there is no ridge or burr remaining, and make sure that you check to see that it's being polished and refined. Work on the finishing stone for a couple of minutes and you should have a fairly sharp knife.